When I was young, as a boy, I never really thought of becoming a priest. When I was in high school, during my teenage years, the only thing I really cared about was football. I played football during the fall, and then during the winter and the summer, we trained for football, lifting weights, exercising, getting in shape. I was a fanatic for football. And God used this actually to start my path towards the priesthood. I've always been a huge fan of the Dallas Cowboys, my favorite football team. So when I was finishing high school, I had to think about what university I wanted to go to. My father suggested the University of Dallas. I didn't think much about it. Dallas, it's a small school down there. Until I went to visit. And when I went to visit, I saw that the stadium of my favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, is right next to the campus. In any event, when I saw the stadium, and I liked the school as well, I decided to go to the University of Dallas. And this was something that, in God's providence, He used my love of football and my dedication to the Cowboys in particular to bring me to Dallas, because it was in Dallas where I met Opus Dei. After starting to practice my faith more, to pray, to receive spiritual direction, I saw that it was my vocation to dedicate my life to God in Opus Dei. When I met Opus Dei, I was fascinated by the idea of being a saint in the middle of the world, being a saint by sanctifying my professional work and by helping others to get closer to God through that professional work. So when I left the university, I dedicated myself to philosophy. I worked on a PhD in philosophy, and I also taught philosophy at the university level for 6 years. I think a priest is like a person who's in a particular situation. On one hand, he has a crowd of hungry people that he needs to feed. People who are hungry for God, who are hungry for God's grace, for reconciliation, who are hungry for meaning in their life. And so, on the one hand, the priest has this. On the other hand, he has a pantry, a supply of food, in which you find many, many good things that can feed these people. He has the Word of God in the Bible. He has the sacraments of the church, confession, which forgives sins. He has the Eucharist, where Jesus becomes food for these people. He has the doctrine of the church, right, the teaching of the church. And so he's got to find a way to make sure that these food products, right, the spiritual food, reaches this crowd of people, right, who are hungry, who need this food. And he has to do so like a good chef. So he has to do what a good chef does. That is, he has to take these products, right, these nutritious, tasty products, and make sure they reach the people. But he has to do it in a way that's artful. He has to make sure it's appetizing, that the people like it, that the people return to eat again. But at the same time, he has to make sure that he doesn't water down the content of the food. He has to make sure that it's still nutritious, that it actually feeds the people and doesn't become junk food, right? Something that people like, but leaves them with nothing real or nothing substantial. A priest of Opus Dei is like a good coach, right? The main thing that he does to help people is to guide them, to help them discover where in their own particular lives, in their concrete circumstances, where God is calling them to be closer to Him. And this happens through spiritual direction, which is a very important part of the service that priests of Opus Dei provide, through confession, of course, and through retreats, right, as well as through their preaching and the administration of the sacraments. But this particular task of helping people discover how in their own everyday circumstances, how in their own situation, they can live that closeness to God, that happens mostly, I think, through spiritual direction and confession. The old stadium is funny because it was a dome, but it had a hole in the roof. And so we Cowboys fans used to say that they made the stadium that way so that God could watch His favorite team play.